Hello, everybody. Looks like everybody's in here. I just wanted to mention before I pass it over to Jared that I'm going to be recording this session. So please let me know if for some reason you have a problem with that. It's only going to be used for close-up. It's not going to be used for any social media, any type of promotion, anything like that. It will just be within our organization. Nobody else will be seeing it. So as far as I know. So we will not be using your information for anything else. It's just for us. So, but otherwise, I have the chat open. Jared is going to start sharing his screen in just a minute. But if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. You can put them, give them to me, or you can specifically, or Jared, or to everyone if you feel the need that everybody should ask. Or see this question. So I'm going to pass it over to Jared, and he's going to upload the screen share feature for you to see the our PowerPoint that we're going to be starting off
with. Yeah. All right. How's everyone doing? We're all doing, guys. So I'm going to share my screen here. Give me one second. Alrighty. Do you guys see the PowerPoint? Awesome. So can everyone see the PowerPoint? I might leave it as this. We're going to do some edits on it in just a little bit. I think it might be just easier for us. But welcome to session 1, everybody. Katie and I are super excited to have you guys here, and we're super excited to get to know you guys a little bit more in this session. So for first off, I just want to, it looks like everyone has got their names all right and good with their state and their school, so I really appreciate that. But just to kind of go down the agenda here. So first off, we're going to do a little bit of icebreaker. We're going to try to get to know each other a little bit more, kind of say your name, where you're from, and then like we have a couple really interesting questions for you guys to answer. And then after that, I'm going to pass it back over to Katie, where she's going to do setting some community guidelines. You guys are going to be in the next few weeks in other small groups, and we're going to have like one whole wide community guideline for all of us, so that we are, respecting each other. We have these rules in place for discussions, so that we're all on the same page this week for our sessions. And then we're going to identify our areas of interest. So Scott mentioned a little bit about those subjects that you guys are going to be looking at, and you guys are going to be like looking at them more a little specifically today about which ones you guys want to kind of dive into in session 2 and the remaining weeks. And then we're going to talk about understand the story of now. We'll kind of get to that in a little bit. And then we're going to preview the next session after we are all done. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to do some introductions and some icebreakers. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do, this is also going to be like a nice way to practice with Zoom if you aren't too familiar with it. But I am going to, if you guys look under participants, if you click on the participants tab, you will see like a raise hand feature. And this is where a lot of times, not all the time, but we're going to be using that raise hand feature to kind of like answer our questions. So not everyone is talking at one time. It can be kind of difficult sometimes with virtual learning in Zoom. So this is kind of a great way to practice that. So with our introductions and our icebreaker, we're going to introduce yourself. I would like for you guys to kind of say your name and where you're from. And then me and Katie really want you guys to answer one of these 3 questions that I have here. So we have, what is something that you did as a kid that you think is an example of the person that you are today? 2, if you had a time machine, what time period would you visit and why? And 3, if you had to give a 60-second virtual tour of the space that you are in right now, what would you say? So for example, I'll start off. So using my hand raise function, and I'll call on you. So my name is Jared again. Um, like I said, I was originally from Ohio, but I moved out here to the DC area to work for Close Up. And the question that I want to answer is number two. So if you had a time machine, what time period would you visit and why? I would say that I would want to go back to the 1950s and 1960s. I really am fascinated by the pop culture of those decades with music and movies and TV. I'm a big Beatles fan, Motown fan. And if you ever heard of guys like Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra, those are my guys. Those are the guys I like listening to. So that's just me. Katie, do you want to introduce yourself real quick before we hand it off to the students?
Yeah. Um, so I will go ahead and answer. Again, I'm from Missouri, but I live in Virginia now, and my name is Katie. And I think something that if I had to give you a 60-second virtual tour of my space, right now you're seeing my living room, but to my side is the kitchen, and which is my favorite place to work when I'm not working with students. And I make a lot of bread, so I would show you all the flour and all of the machines and all the tools I use to make my bread. So
Awesome.
that would be my 60-second tour.
So you kind of saw an example of how you guys can introduce yourselves. So if you want to use that raise hand feature, I will call on that first person that I see. And then we can get started with you guys introducing yourselves and answering one of those questions. So who doesn't want to start? Zoe.
I guess I kind of have a similar answer to you. I want to go back to the 1970s because Queen is my favorite band, and I've always wanted to go to one of their concerts.
Awesome. Thank you, Zoe. All right. Who's next? Honor.
Hi, I'm Honor, and I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I guess I'll answer number two, and if I could go back in time, I would go to, like, the late 1700s, because I want to meet the founding fathers and, like, tell them that the Constitution they were making actually, like, stuck, because there's a lot of doubt about it, and I want to be like, by the way, America is still alive and thriving, like, 200 years later, so.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. We have Naomi.
Hi, I'm Naomi. I'm from Chicago, and I can give you a tour of my space. We're in my room right now. I'm at my desk. I have a lot of chemistry papers and stuff, so I'm not going to show it to you. It's very messy. But yeah, this is my room.
Awesome. Thank you. I see Mia.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I'm Mia. I'm 17. I'm from New York, and I go to a girls' school called Spence. To answer question number two, I would probably go back to either the 1970s or 1980s. I'm pretty big in fashion, so I would go back to just be around people like that.
Awesome. Awesome. We have Kyle.
Hi, I'm Kyle Hansen from Portland, Oregon. And if I had a time machine, I think I'd want to go 100 years in the future, see how technology has advanced and how it affects society now.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think we missed Martha.
Martha, yes.
I was on mute. I'm Martha. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I go to Westminster. And I'm just trying to, like, do something for one because no one said anything for one. But I can't think of anything, like, super significant. But when I was little, I used to, like, dress myself and, like, do my own hair. And I would look kind of like crazy at school, but I think it's kind of an example of me because I'm, like, super independent and stuff, and I would never want my mom to, like, pick out my outfits for me.
All right. Thank you for sharing. I have Wynn.
Hi, my name's Wynn Moore. I go to Good Shepherd Episcopal School, and if I had a time machine, I would travel to the future because I'd like to see what technology is like there.
Awesome. I like it. Sanaz.
Hi, I'm Sanaz. I'm from California and I go to Hedros. It's in the Bay Area. And for number 3, I'm just in my room and I just cleaned it, which is nice.
Awesome. Can't say the same for myself. Berdine?
Hi, I'm Berdine. I'm from Oakland, California. I also go to Head Royce. If I could have a time machine, I would probably go maybe 10 or 20 years in the future just to see how the world will change.
Awesome. Thank you. And I have Tasia.
Hi, my name's Tasia. I also live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I also go to Westminster. And I guess for question one thing I did as a kid was if there was like anything that I found interesting, I would just try my best to take it apart and put it back together to see how it worked. And I was just kind of curious like that, and I did that with everything. 50% of the stuff that I took apart usually never came back together, so I would just break it. But I'd like to think that I'm still kind of like curious like that today. And yeah.
Awesome. Sweet. And we have Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm from San Francisco, California. And if I could travel to any time, I'd go back to like 1000 BCE, just to go way out of where we are now and kind of see how things, or see if there's anything remotely similar.
Awesome. I like it. Eris?
If I were to give you a virtual tour of the room that I'm in right now, there's a desk, a couch, and a table.
Awesome. Thank you. And I have Maya.
Hi, my name is Maya. I live in San Francisco. I go to San Francisco Friends School. And if I had to give you a virtual tour of the room that I'm in my bedroom, and the floor is really messy right now because I'm working on a science drawing of an eye. And so there's stuff all over the floor. And yeah.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you. Who else?
Is Natanya, did she go? Is she one of our students?
I'm an adult. I don't know if you actually want adults weighing in.
No, that's okay. I wasn't sure because I was checking the chat and making sure that everybody was able to participate if they wanted to.
No worries. Thank you.
Yes. All right.
Okay. I think we got everybody.
Perfect.
I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much for sharing. And like we said earlier, we're really excited about this session and just the program in general. It's going to be a great time, and I know Katie and I spoke a little earlier, and we're really excited to be working with students, especially during this weird time. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy it, and really thank you guys for sharing where you're from and answering those questions. And I'll turn it over to Katie and let me connect you to the reaching the PowerPoint.
All right, so we are going to get started talking about the community work that we've done first, and then what we hope to get out of this program. And then we are going to establish some rules or community guidelines that we will then will be shared with the entire almost 90 students. And together, all of us will have one big list of community guidelines that we've made together. So this is all coming from you all and not from us, but rather they are guidelines that you all think are important in order to get the work done that, that you all are so passionate about. So this is going to be in whole group, and there are about 15 of us or so that are students. So we'll use the raise hand function to respond, or you can respond in the chat. So I have both of those pulled up, and as we're responding, just go ahead and raise your hand or type it in the chat, and I'll try and read out what I see in the chat as it comes up in between people speaking. But the first question, how have you been involved in community work prior to this program? Is something that we want to make sure that we understand where everybody's coming from. So whoever is brave could share first. How have you been involved in community work prior to this program? And we've got Honor.
Okay, so something that I have done before this whole pandemic is I lead a volunteer tutoring program at a pre-K that goes twice a week and helps like relieve stress from the teachers and has one-on-one tutoring with students to read with them.
All right, thank you. And what do you hope to get out of this program?
I hope to find more ways to help my students, not my students, obviously, but like help those kids when I'm away from them as well.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. All right, and then Mia?
So freshman year, I started volunteering at this organization called LSA, which basically, it's in East Harlem, and it helps East Harlem, specifically immigrant families, with just like a variety of services. So I've been working and volunteering there, and then I also created a youth board at that organization, which is just a group of students from all girls schools who kind of try and spread the mission and find ways to help LSA. And I'm currently working on something to do with clothing sustainability and thrift store shopping. So I'm in the process of that. And I hope that this program will find other ways that I can help my community, and more specifically, find more ways to support LSA and their mission.
Thank you so much. Sounds like you have a lot of things that you're doing all at once. So yeah, I really love how driven people are in this program already. And so then we have Martha.
Yes, so at my school, we have something called Service Corps, and it's a group of students who kind of head up service at our school, and we give grants to different clubs that come and propose service ideas to us. And then we also plan activities for kids at the school that want to sign up. So one that I like really enjoyed, and an organization that I've done through school and on my own with my family and on the weekends, is called Agape, and it's an after school program for kids that can come and have like some physical activity. There's like a playground and like basketball area, and then they get fed a meal there, and they have a lot of like tutoring programs and programs that their schools might not offer, and like things that their families may not be able to give them. Like there's a computer lab there. We do like science projects with the kids. I've been with my family to serve meals, and I just really like the hands-on like aspect of it. And from this program, I'm hoping to just figure out a better way to like reach more people through my school. I think there's a lot of kids like around me that are willing to serve and want to serve, but sometimes they like don't think they have enough time, or it's kind of hard. And I just like want to figure out a better way to reach them and be able to get more people involved.
That's great. It sounds like you're really interested in organizing people, which is a skill that is almost separate sometimes from volunteering. So thank you so much. And then Naomi.
Hi. So I am a volunteer at the Field Museum, which is a natural history museum in Chicago, and I do a lot of kind of directly with people, a lot of teaching, and a lot of just volunteering around the museum, trying to make the experience better. And I also recently, due to the pandemic, my Science Olympiad team, I was like helped start a video chat thing that our whole team has done with educational videos for adults with developmental disabilities at an organization called Aspire, and that has been really fun. And I also volunteer with my city's Jewish organizations.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I love the Field Museum. When I was in Chicago, it was lovely. So I'm glad to hear you're working for them. So, all right. And then Wynn?
At my old school, we worked with an organization or with a shelter called Austin Street Shelter, and we helped a group of homeless women build relationships, and we wrote poems with them, and we sold them to help raise money for them, for all of them.
Well, that's really cool. Go ahead.
I hope to help impact my community in a big way out of this.
Yay. There's a publication that goes out in DC where people who are homeless write for them as well. And so I'm really familiar with that type of model. So it's great to hear that in Texas. And then Verdine.
So I'm a part of the community engagement board at my school, which really just works to create more opportunities and get people involved in our community. One thing I've done on my own that I've really enjoyed is work in an organization called the Prisoners Literature Project, where we open handwritten letters from prisoners requesting books, and then we pick them out from a library that is made up of donations, and then package them up and send them back. Out of this program, I really just hope to get more skills that will help me in spreading community engagement and getting more people involved.
Perfect, thank you. I love hearing more and more people who are really interested in organizing. Sanas?
Yeah, hi. I am also on community engagement board with Verdine, and it's a really great experience. And something I like to do on my own is I like to help volunteer for like political rallies and things like that and phone bank, and it's really fun. And from this program, I guess just meet new people, broaden my horizons regarding community engagement, and like see what other people are thinking.
You have to be brave to be on those phone banks, so go you. All right, and then Zoe?
I'm also on the same community engagement board as Sanaz and Bradine. And outside of that board, before coronavirus, I was in the midst of launching a club at my school in which students would prepare meals in our cafe and then distribute them to the homeless people near our school. And yeah, I was about to create that club, but then school got canceled, so.
That's heartbreaking. I know that you'll be able to get it going though as soon as you all are back, so. All right, and then Teja?
Yeah, so like Martha, I'm also on my school service corps, and I'm actually on the grants team, and we like help decide how much money each like project gets. And I'm also the leader of the Red Cross chapter of my school. I've planned a couple blood drives with my school and outside of them, and I've helped set them up. I've hosted them, and I've volunteered at a soup kitchen, and over the summer I interned at a cancer research lab, and so I'm really into community service and seeing how I can help, and that's kind of the reason why I wanted to see what this program offered, because this April, actually, I think it was supposed to be last week, we were supposed to have a blood drive, which obviously got canceled due to the pandemic. So with this program, I just want to see how I can help our community in like the safest possible way without spreading the virus and adhering to like social distancing.
Yeah, especially since you seem to be interested in doing things along medical lines, it can be very difficult, but that very rewarding. So thank you. Maya?
Hi. As part of my school, last year, I went to the food bank a few times to volunteer and help package food to be distributed. And during COVID, I've gone a few times because they've had a lack of volunteers, just to go and help out and make sure that they can get food out to people who really need it. And I've also made some masks at home just to distribute to healthcare workers and people who can't go out and buy masks.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people are needing right now are the masks, and it's hard to find them, so. All right, just really quickly, Zoe said that she wanted to also say that she hopes to learn new and creative ways to engage with her community, so thank you, Zoe. And then Sydney?
Hi, I'm Sydney. I think I missed the first part. My Zoom was glitching, but I'm here now. Some of the projects I've been involved to before, I worked with one organization for the last 2 years called MedShare, and it takes like excess medical supplies from different distributors or hospitals, and it repackages them and sorts them so that we can give them to countries in need. And so I really love volunteering here because it has a really big like global impact too, even though it's really pretty simple work. And then also during this quarantine, I've also been making a bunch of masks for healthcare workers and just people who need them in general. And so things that I hope to get out of this program are ways to just really stay involved during, like while we have this break and while we have to stay at home. and also to just gain more leadership skills and be able to spread community engagement at my school.
Thank you. Yeah, working outside the United States is really important as well. So thank you for adding that perspective. Let's see here. So we just have a few left. So Eris?
So as part of our 8th grade year, we volunteered throughout the year at a church called the Gubbio Project, which is basically an organization that opens up churches around San Francisco for a certain time during the week, so that homeless people can sleep and get rest and get food. And so every week, our school sends like 5 volunteers to go and help clean up and prepare the food and sweep and that kind of thing. So we've been doing that all year.
Yeah. Homelessness, when I went to San Francisco, I saw such a huge problem with like firsthand. And so thank you very much for your work. And then Kyle?
Hi, so I've organized quite a few events at my school, from like adopt a families to canned food drives. And then a larger project I've been working on this year is that I worked with a physical therapist to try to help to code and engineer a device so she was able to communicate with her primarily elderly demographic while socially distanced from them. So they were able to communicate what exercises they've been doing without the elderly population having to use technology as much.
Oh, wow. The assistive technology is really important. Thank you very much for your work. What would you like to get out of this program? Sorry, I interrupted you.
I'd like to find more ways to combine my love for STEM and community service and get more ideas on what I can do, especially during this time.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, and then Ben?
Yeah, I am also from San Francisco. I have done a lot of work in and out of school with homelessness things like food banks, food drives, pantries, and the Gubbio project as well. And I'm also part of something called the class clerks in my grade. We've been working on facilitating kind of change in our school because our school is going through a lot of big changes right now, in especially the middle school. And we are our purpose is to get feedback from students and then share that with teachers and administrators. So yeah, what I hope to get out of the program is, I mean, first, hearing perspectives from like around the country, because it's kind of a rare opportunity and not something I've ever been able to do and hear. And also, of course, to learn how to like better facilitate things and help out more with homelessness stuff and service projects.
Oh, great. Well, I'm really excited you're here. I mean, again, that homelessness is such a huge issue in San Francisco. It makes sense that a lot of you all are focusing on it, but the fact that you've been working so hard organizing is and facilitating is like the next step from volunteering. So thank you. All right. So is that everybody? I believe that was everybody.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I'm, again, really inspired by the work that you all just shared with me. I think that you all are going to be able to get a lot out of this program, especially since this is something that should be focusing on the drive and passion that you all have, bringing to the table, basically, and sharing with each other stories, information, and then building upon that to achieve your goals at home. So we really want this to be centered around you all, like we had said earlier. So we're going to go ahead and make some some guidelines for our discussion. We'll make a list of them, and again, we will combine those with others, the other groups that are in breakout sessions right now. So for the next session. So unless anybody has any questions, which you are more than welcome to ask in the chat, we'll just use the raise hand function and answer this question. And not everybody has to say an answer, but people can agree with it or disagree with it or ask questions, ask to make something more clear. So this is more of a discussion, but we'll just use the raise hand function or the chat to do it. So what should we do to make this community successful and productive? And Martha already has her hand raised. So what would you like to say, Martha?
I was just gonna say, as just like a guideline, to listen to people and not like come with like pre-assumptions about, I mean, everyone has like their own opinions and things they're passionate about, but to hear everybody out and to listen and respect other people's opinions.
Thank you. Naomi?
I think to go in with an open mind, and maybe even if it's not something that you've been had experience with or are interested in, keep an open mind and maybe you'll be swayed one way or another.
Right. Yeah, when we're discussing something that's controversial or maybe we don't have the same solution, to keep an open mind to listen to what other people are saying. Thank you. Ben, do you have your hand raised to respond to the question, or did you just have your hand raised?
Nope, I just had it from before. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. I was just curious if you were waiting on me. So would anybody else like to think of some community guidelines as we're working together? Win.
I think we should continue to follow the social distancing guidelines. Just make sure we do that.
Oh, okay. So like, like any solutions that we come up with and things like that should probably be applicable to our situation today. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I definitely agree with that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
As you can see, I'm not going in complete sentences. So
I don't think complete sentences are necessary or anything like that. So, would anybody else like to add something that they think is important for everybody to remember whenever we're talking about solutions to issues or sharing information that might be important or personal to us? So when we talk about like, let's see here, when we talk about working in groups, is there anything that whenever you had a group struggle, is there anything that you found difficult to do that you think that could be fixed if everybody was on the same page at the beginning? Because we will be doing work together and you probably will need to do some work on your own outside of these sessions. What would make it easier for you to be able to work with other people? Honor.
Maybe like just make sure have some sort of requirement that everyone participates.
Okay, yeah, so make sure that, yeah, that is clear. I don't think I need to repeat what you just said. All right. We don't want anybody to be kind of like along for the ride instead of being participant. And maybe just you all are very high achieving students, I think, probably because you all were nominated by your teachers. But does anybody have any expectations of the way that other people are going to work outside of the outside of these sessions, or like on your own when you're gathering information or something like that? Martha again.
Well, I don't really know like what all we're going to be doing necessarily, so I can't really speak to specifically, but I guess just doing your part in whatever's assigned or whatever needs to be done so that it can get done.
Yes, yeah. Sometimes just being as simple as like being on time and making sure that you are present can be important. Zoe.
Maybe also watching what you're saying and making sure that what you're saying is respectful. That kind of goes along with what was said before. But.
Yeah, but maybe like making space for other people so that you have other people in mind when you're speaking. And then honor.
Something that I found helpful that like we at our school we use sometimes to like make sure everyone's being productive is that you never can say no to someone. You say like, oh well, maybe think of it that way. Like you're just building off of each other instead of shutting someone's idea down.
Okay, that's a good idea. Like making sure that you aren't. Let me see how I would phrase that. I guess it doesn't matter. I think the way you phrased it is pretty good. So, Ben. Oh, sorry, Mia.
Now my hand.
Oh, you didn't mean to. Okay, Mia.
This is more general, but of course it's gonna go along as our community builds, but just not being afraid to share ideas.
Yeah, it is kind of strange whenever you don't know everybody in the room, but like having faith that other people are willing to listen to you does make you have to be a little bit brave sometimes. So,
Katie, sorry, what was honors again before?
She was saying oh, Honor, would you mind saying it again? You had it better.
Of course. I was just saying that instead of saying no to people, we build on each other's ideas.
Thank you.
My hand is actually raised, sorry.
Okay, perfect.
It's kind of similar to what's been said before. I mean, just not assuming that everyone else is going to agree with what you're going to say. Oftentimes when I'm in a group and someone's thinking that what they're saying is already right, but a lot of times, especially because we're definitely going to have different opinions, we're from all over the country and have different interests, not to assume that what you're saying is going to be agreed upon.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that a lot, is assuming. So thank you very much for that. Okay. I think we have a pretty good list. If everybody agrees to this list and understands everything that was said, would you all use the yes function under the participants? Instead of the raise hand function, it's right next to it. See, most of you all have been able to find the yes. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Looks great. And these are rules, again, that you all made yourself. So please feel free to hold each other accountable. Oh, did we have the second part? What did you not do? We'll just do this pretty quickly. So
yeah, we can add a few.
Yeah, we can add a few what we should not do. So if anybody has an idea of things that we should not do, to just make sure that we are, okay, Tasia.
Make sure not to like too heavily criticize anybody's ideas. Like maybe add on to what they were saying or ask them a question about it, but never to just completely neglect what they're saying.
Yeah. It's really hard when you don't get feedback at all. So, and especially negative feedback. Would anybody else like to share anything that we think that we should not do? We don't have to make this list very long because sometimes it's better to be in the affirmative than in the negative, but. Mia.
This is just more general, and it's more about respect, but don't discriminate. Obviously, we come from different backgrounds, have different identities, so don't have any sort of bias.
Yeah, and it's hard sometimes to not know if you've never interacted with somebody who's different than you, but I think that keeping in mind other people's differences is really important, so thank you for that. Anybody else? All right. Well, a lot of the things we already again said affirmatively, and so probably don't need to say so much in negatively. So if we are good to move on, we'll just go ahead and do that yes feature again, unless you have one more idea or a couple more ideas. It's not a big deal. But just put that green check mark up if you are ready to move on in the participants section. It looks like most of you all are ready. All right. Thank you very much. So we are going to move on to the next section. I'm going to pass it back over to Jared because this is really kind of the main focus of what we're doing right now. And we really want to make sure that you all have enough time to consider your path, basically, that you're going to be taking for the rest of the next 6 weeks after today. So, all right, Jared.
All right. Thanks, Katie. So as we're moving on, like Katie said, we're going to be diving a little bit more into some specifics, but not diving too deep. So like what Scott had previously said in our beginning opening with the larger group, and then Katie kind of said now, you're really going to be looking at the specific subject and like an issue or issues within that subject. And if you look on the PowerPoint, the 6 that we have that we will talk about a little bit later, but you will get a chance to choose which one or two that you're really interested in learning more about and doing more about. The list is food insecurity, education, homelessness, environment, civic engagement, and poverty. So these are the 6 subjects that we're going to be touching upon in these committee issue areas. So they are the committees, so there will be 6 committees. So what I want to do is kind of open up for a discussion amongst ourselves. And I have 3 questions here. So the first question is, how do these, any or all of these issues impact your community? Which of these issues are you most passionate about and why? And which of these issues do you think you know the most about or the least about? And what we can do is we can do the raise hand function again. You can also put it in the chat and answer to one of those 3 questions. But you can, as a responder, you can answer 1, you can answer 2, you can answer all 3 if you want to. Yeah, we can just open up for a discussion. So looking at these issue areas, how do they impact your community? What are the most issues you care about the most? And which issues do you know the most about or the least about? And we got Win.
I think that food insecurity and homelessness are a very big problem in Dallas. There's a lot of food insecurity and there's a ton of homelessness. Probably, never mind, just homelessness. And I think that I'm most passionate about the food insecurity because that's a very, very, very important. That just to think about, if you don't have food, you could die, and that's a big, big deal. So that's what I'm most passionate about.
Yeah, great. And that kind of like you said, kind of works hand in hand with homelessness sometimes too. That's similar subjects. I got Zoe.
For those of us living in San Francisco and Oakland, I think we know how big of a problem homelessness and food insecurity is. And it's most interesting to me, and I like addressing those issues the most when I do community engagement and things like that, because I see it everywhere I go. Like, I live in Oakland, so whenever I go to the grocery store, when I'm driving there, I see it on the sidewalks, I see it under the underpasses, and it's just a really big problem that's local, and that's why I'm most interested in those areas.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I have Tasia.
Yeah, so just like Win and Zoe, homelessness is a really big issue in my community because, you know, the city of Atlanta has a lot of homelessness. You can see homeless people like under bridges and just walking along the highway with really no place to go. And I know that it's terrible to have because, you know, they're exposed to the elements during a pandemic, which is probably the worst time to not have a place to call your own. And food insecurity is also an issue just because, you know, I mean, grocery stores can barely keep up with the amount of supplies people are taking just in case everything goes wrong. And I mean, it's a really big issue in Atlanta. It's probably the ones that I'm most passionate about. So.
Yeah, and like we're already with some of your answers, guys. Like, or like it's just about homelessness. It seemed like you three had similar. You see like a trend of homelessness really affecting like urban communities and cities. So really, thank you so much for sharing. I have Naomi.
I live in Chicago, and education is a pretty big issue, and I think that's something that I'm the most passionate about. And I've done a lot of work to try to, I guess, remedy some of the stuff that's not so great about the education system. And I think that it's something that in a lot of big cities and urban areas is a pretty big issue, like education disparity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It affects a lot of people, especially your generation right now. Just all different kind of subjects of, college accessibility, standardized testing. You can go on and on. So I really
I would also argue that it's kind of the root of all of the issues, really. If you don't have an access to education, it makes it like you have a bigger. It makes it like lack of education is kind of a big factor in poverty and the environment and all of the issues kind of mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. They can all kind of connect in that way and all kind of like support each other in a certain way. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. Martha?
I'm from Atlanta too, and I think like something in Atlanta especially is the communities can be so split. You can be so close in proximity to people that just have so much less. And I've noticed like I think the poverty and education piece of it are really important to me because I've got to work with people and experience like situations where people live just on the road and like their access to the schools or tutoring or like college prep and like even like the testing and like just they're worried about things like getting food and getting to go to school each day and like education. I think they deserve to have that be more important and more accessible. So I think like the way poverty and education go hand in hand is really interesting to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way a lot of times sometimes with the poverty and education and connection, like what Naomi said. Maya?
So as people settled, homelessness is a big issue. Like I live in San Francisco and you see it every time you're walking down the street. And I think when you're so close in proximity to something so horrible, like it's really, really easy to like have a place like to feel bad about it and feel like you should do something about it. And I also think like the environment is a big issue that I care about because I think we are like the future, obviously, and like this is the world we're going to be living in. So we gotta like, make it a better place for us and for like everything that lives on the planet. And I feel like we can do something about it, and we can tell other people to do something about it, and that's like we really should do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you didn't say it, but I could see like you hinting into like how education can be important with the environment. Like you said, people knowing more about it can really help the cause. Great, thank you so much. I have Mia.
I mean, I think the environment impacts the whole world, not just specifically my community. And adding on to everyone, obviously, their poverty, I feel like, is the root of many of these issues. And just living in New York, where the economic disparities are so great, and you see these disparities when you're walking down the streets, it becomes easy to overlook and normalize it in our society, which is the problem. I think the issue I'm most passionate about is also the issue I know least about, which is the environment. I went to the climate strike last year, and that kind of shifted my whole perspective because I wasn't very engaged in environmental things until I went to that climate strike. And now I'm trying to educate myself and learn more and focusing more on clothing sustainability and just like our waste in general in the United States.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Anna?
So I'm from Dallas, and like I think his name is Quinn. Yeah, he lives in Dallas too, and he was talking about how food insecurity and poverty is a really big problem in Dallas, and I agree with that. That being said, I feel like I'm pretty passionate about education and homelessness. Like Maria was saying earlier, I think having a good education opens you up to a whole lot of opportunities. And I think if you have a bad education, it can lead down some of these paths of like homelessness, poverty, etc. And so that's why I think starting off and like helping with education early on can help later on with the other things. Something I kind of wish I knew more and helped with more is food insecurity. I kind of started helping with that a little bit over this like pandemic because we have a family restaurant and I've been helping serve meals a couple times a week to like hospitals, but now I'm trying to get us to expand to serve to like homeless youth shelters and other like places that actually kind of need food and don't have the resources right now. So I'm trying to help with that, and maybe that's something we can work on.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. I really found it interesting that a lot of you have like said that like you have said like what you're passionate about, what you're interested in, and then like a lot of stuff that you guys are interested in, you might not know a lot about. And we're really excited that you guys have things that you're not too informed on, but you really want to know more and dive deep into that. So I really appreciate that. And Kyle?
So the issues I'm most passionate about is definitely education and environment. So I feel like it's a really good way for kids to get creative with their solutions to these problems. And I feel like it's a pathway to the other issues because they can see with their like creative solutions and they get passionate about it, how it affects their community. And that will, I feel like that advocate or like that makes them want to help more.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Kyle. And then Berdine?
Yeah, I think all of these issues are obviously really important and they all need to be addressed. One thing I think is interesting right now is looking at poverty in education because like during quarantine and during this time, like no schools are open. So a lot of students I think are falling behind in their education, especially if they don't have access to technology. Because if you can't take online school, then you're not really learning much at this point, which is definitely something I think we can all work to help fix.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's great. You brought up like how like there's a factor that's affecting education right now, especially with the coronavirus, and maybe like not a lot of people having access to education. So I really appreciate that. Ben.
Yeah. The issues I'm most interested in are homelessness. Again, there's tons and tons of homelessness in San Francisco, and it's just especially the San Francisco Friends School that me and a few other people in this chat go to is in a neighborhood called the Mission, and it's one of the highest concentrations of homeless people in the city. So that's something that's really relevant all throughout my education and life and stuff. And the other issue that I'm most interested in is civic engagement, because I feel like more and more, like you get 1 in 100 kids are actually interested in any kind of politics or social activism or anything, and it's closely tied to education, I guess, and a lot of similar things. But especially now during the quarantine, like I'll FaceTime a few friends or people that I know from outside of school, from different places, and their routine is just get up, social media, video games, a couple hours of school, kind of flunk through because there aren't too many actual grades right now, and then that's it.
Yeah, so like being more engaged, like what Ben said, not just with social media with friends, but actually like getting more involved. And I think that's a lot what you guys are doing. I really appreciate that you guys have taken this time to kind of see what are some issues that I want to maybe not that I'm passionate about, maybe I want to learn more about, and how can I really benefit my community in that way. And I think that's great that you guys are doing that. I have Sydney.
I'm also from the Bay Area, and like a lot of people that are from these big cities, I think one of the biggest problems are homelessness and food insecurity. And kind of tagging on to what Ben just said, I think civic engagement is actually a really interesting way to kind of like tie all that in together. especially during this quarantine when people kind of had like a lack of that. I think that getting a lot of people involved in topics that really affect them, homelessness, like things that they see every day with civic engagement, I think it's a really good way to like tie it in together and get more people involved in the community.
Yeah, definitely. It's a topic that, you know, a lot of people often forget. But I feel like as the coronavirus has been going on, I feel like politics has still been going. If you get like read articles, you know, Congress is still in the beginning. Congress is in session, doing a lot of different things. The president has governors have their press conferences. So there's a lot of options and a lot of ways that students your age and you guys can get more involved with civics and politics. I have Aries.
Just adding on to what Ben is saying, when we were having school in person, I think it was easier to give back to our community and help out with social issues. But now with the coronavirus pandemic, I think it's going to be, I'm interested in finding out how we can help out with the same issues that we were dealing with firsthand before, through virtual ways or through different ways now that we can't physically interact with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, continuing to adapt in ways that we can still do things that are beneficial, but, you know, obviously continuing to adhere to those guidelines that state governments and national government has applied to. I have anyone else want to respond? Trying to see if anyone did not go. Anybody else have anything else left to say? Okay, awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys responding to these questions, whether that was all three, kind of like a mixture of them. But we really got not just a variety of issues, but like I said, we see, I'm seeing a lot of issues that you guys are passionate about and a lot of issues that you guys feel important, but maybe you might not know a lot about. And you guys in your answers have often said, it seems like a lot of you guys have put that question 1 into your answers on how it's affecting your community. And you guys gave examples of how homelessness is affecting your communities, or education, or poverty. And having that personal experience really will help you guys in your committee assignments and really explaining what you guys want to do in the next coming weeks. Does anyone have any other questions or responses to anything that we discussed in this area? Alrighty, cool. So that means I will turn it over to Katie for a few more things to talk about.
We are going to be finishing up here in just a few minutes. But what I'm going to do is first tell you what in between this session and next session, what that's going to look like for you all. The first thing is we're going to be talking about making a narrative, and we call it the story of self, the story of us, and the story of now. And you all are going to be able to write a story of self between now and your next session, but we don't want you to do that until after you've been assigned to your committee work, basically, or your issue area work. So what we're going to have you do is just kind of think about these 2 questions that are at the bottom here that says, under the story of self, story of us, story of now, what calls you to serve your community, and what do you have to contribute what do you have to contribute to actions for change? So just consider those things. A story of self will tell us why you have been called to serve. So you will be telling a compelling story about choices that have shaped your path, and how you have taken on leadership or not taken on leadership and where you have done that. So in your story of self, think about places that events that have been impactful on you, and then places that you have had to make a choice or moments that are important. These don't have to be something that are the most personal things about you, but rather things that are the most perhaps poignant in your life that have become like touch points that you can think back on and say, oh, this shaped my path. And so a story of self will be about a paragraph long. It doesn't have to be very, very, very long or very, very, very detailed. It does tell us where you came from, because we're going to be using those stories of self to write a story of us next session. That story of us will be what your focus area is, and it will basically be what brings all of you together to achieve a similar goal. So you're not writing a story of us by next Wednesday, you're just writing the story of self. There will be an email that goes out with more information about that. Are there any questions about that right now? Just use the raise hand function if yes. Okay, it looks like no. All right, so we are going to post a link in the chat that should be a clickable link. Let's see. But this link will also be emailed to you. Are you posting it, Jared?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. The survey, it basically is going to be a very, very, very short survey that you'll need to take to help us decide what your issue area that you're interested in out of those 6 issue areas we just discussed. So we will, those issue areas again are the environment, food insecurity, homelessness, poverty, education, and civic engagement. And you get to be placed in either your top choice or your second choice. So we don't want everybody to be in homelessness necessarily, but but if you have homelessness as your first choice and you don't get into that one, it may be that it can be in your second choice, which might be food insecurity. So some of the groups will be very large depending on how people's interest is, and some of the groups will be much smaller, but you all will be dividing into subgroups. So don't think that you'll be having to coordinate necessarily with 20 other people at once. It will be in much smaller groups so that it'll be manageable for you all. So just go ahead and if you have, Honor has a question, okay.
Yeah, I was just wondering, whenever you choose your preferences, should it be something you have a lot of experience with, or can it just be something you want to learn more about?
I think that this is a time, an opportunity for you all to learn as much as you can. So if you're more interested right now on kind of branching out into something new, this is a really great opportunity for that. If you want to go further your own path that you have right now that you know a lot about and you're already engaged in, you could take that as well. It's just a choice that you'll have to make personally as to what you think is the best use of your resources. All right. Anybody else have any questions?
I put the link in the chat, so if you guys want to try that out and make sure that you can copy and paste that, and I tried it myself, so it should work.
Yep.
But this is the link to the survey.
And it goes directly there, but again, this will also be emailed to you. So if you are on a cell phone or something and you can't get to it right now, or you don't want to fill it out right now, you will be able to fill it out when that email gets to you. Any other questions? All right, so Jared, I don't have anything else to add. Do you have anything else you need to add?
No, I just want to say thank you guys for your responses today. They were great, and I'm really excited to get to know a lot more of you guys. I don't know if Katie said it, but me and Katie will be together. We are in the homelessness group.
Currently.
Currently, yeah. Yeah, I just really appreciate all of you guys' responses, and thank you guys.
Yeah, Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a long time since I've been able to work with students because nobody has been able to come to Washington, D.C. But seeing you all and hearing your all's voices has been extremely motivating for me. And I just hope you all know how inspiring you are to other people. So, and the work that you're doing, that you're choosing to take on here is just points to the type of work that you will be able to accomplish in the future. So with that, you all can exit out of this breakout room. If you press the leave room button, it should come up with a choice to leave the room or to leave the session. You can just leave the session. You don't have to go back to the main session. We're not going to be gathering. So you all have a great evening, and we'll see you all later.
Bye,
Bye.
guys. It was good seeing you guys.
All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Hi, Katie.
Bye.
Bye.
How'd it go, Katie?
It went really well. I had such a good time, and the students are so lovely. This is such a great way to get back to working with students, and everybody was so very motivated and had such great inspiring things to say, and it just was very touching. So
Nice.
Yeah. I really, really, really enjoyed it, and I was just really, really grateful to be able to have the opportunity. So
Perfect. Well, thanks, Katie. We'll see you,
Yeah, no
see
problem.
you next week. I mean, I'll see you before next week, obviously, but
Yeah. All right, bye everybody.
Bye, Katie. Thank you.
Blake, I thought the kids in that room were awesome.
They were great. I noticed, so there's still one kid sitting in the room, and his